So I throw that out there just to kind of give you more to think about.
So the property appraiser immediately appraises the new building, and that goes into the ad valorem taxes to the tenant.
Yeah, and in this case,
and the city, if the city technically owns it from the get-go, the city is not exempt from the taxes like
the city is exempt from the taxes,
but like a county is.
Not like a county is. There's a difference between immune from taxation and exempt from taxation, and that'll take us another half hour. We'll need to get our tax attorney in on that one. But we are only exempt because we're a municipality, and we'll have to carefully craft the language in here to try to cover both interests, make sure that we're legally correct, and that we don't squelch development at the airport. We really don't want to do that. I think the developers are correct. That's the last thing we want to do. So we're going to have to be careful there. But for now, all we did was we crafted the language based on what we needed to do to meet the requirements of the Department of Revenue and to show them that the improvements, the main goal there was to make sure that the improvements would not be taxed as an additional rent. That was the goal there, because they could say that any improvements, the value of those improvements become ultimate rent on the site, and therefore is taxable. Which we then have to pass along to our tenants again. And so we're trying to, in essence, protect our business owners from taxation by making sure our language is correct. But it is having an impact on the development side, and that's what we have to work out.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All righty. All right, thank you. Thank you for everybody, too, and we'll look forward to getting all your information and getting into this further. All right, we have, should we get to the lease agreements?
That's a good idea.
For the people that are here. Let's do that rather than put you guys farther down the list.
No seats down there.
So, Eric, you know better who's in order here. Let's take care of that before we talk about the airline, because I think we're paying Remy no matter what, so
yeah,
he can wait.
Okay. Well, all right. So we're looking at item 4B on the agenda. That's the Davis development lease / termination and new lease agreement. All right. I sent out a memo, carefully drafted by Lisa, and did a great job, I might add, on this memorandum. And I'll throw out something real quick to make sure that I also want to thank our legal staff. Not only has Lisa worked very hard, but also our legal staff, the city attorney and assistant city attorney, have been tremendous on this.
Absolutely.
And they have been almost an extension of our staff and have been so responsive and so quick, in spite of the fact they have 2 attorneys on multiple city issues to deal with. So we really appreciate them helping out. I want to make sure that's out there to the public, because we do appreciate that. They helped us to come together with the memo and the leases that are in front of you. 4B is the Davis development lease, and Davis, as you all recall, Davis Development was a airport tenant since November of 2013, and they leased the old operations facility there. Is there a picture you can pull up now, Lisa? Maybe if you can go to the computer and pull up that north ramp, that way we can at least you'll see some idea of what we're talking about. And I can't point on my pointer here, but I think I can describe it. But they've been a tenant on the operations facility not too long after the lease went into effect. As the economy was growing and Davis Development was doing very well up with their development business, decided that they wanted to improve the facility, but couldn't do it because they're going to be increasing their aircraft fleet as well to an aircraft that would be too big for the facility that they just leased. So they were interested in what else could they do in the same time frame. Vero Beach Avionics, which is item 4C on the agenda, and these go together. Vero Beach Avionics went through a strategic shift in their business plan and ultimately sold assets over to Sun Aviation and relocated their business and did not need the Vero Beach Avionics facility. So Lisa was talking to them and put it all together such that, hey, why don't you lease the site just to the south, which is shown there. It says Davis Development. The large hangar used to be the Low Presti site. You all recall that. And Davis said, well, that hangar is in pretty lousy shape. So they took it upon themselves to say, how about if we demolish that at our expense and build a new hangar there? All you have to do is lease us the land. And we agreed to that. The only concession that they asked for was about 6 months of rent being waived so that they could go through the building site plan process and all without paying rent, and we agreed to that also. That's about $6,000 in reduced rent to us over the 30-year period. So we are anxious to move ahead with this. This would tie in with the termination, which is 4C of Vero Avionics, which we'd like you to conceptually approve at the same time. It would allow us to continue leasing the property, have a new approximately $1 million facility built there. It would be a fairly large hangar right on the corner that will improve the aesthetics of the north ramp, bring in revenue for 30 years, and ultimately that building will revert to the city and we'll begin to be charging rent on the building after 30 years. As I mentioned, under the current Attachment B, which Davis Development has, I believe, conceptually agreed to. I don't think we have the signatures yet, correct? We're still...
Their attorneys are still in the process of reviewing.
And I should say, all of these have not quite completed review. It's the time frame. We wanted to move ahead to get your conceptual approval with the terms. If there's anything substantive that comes back from Davis or anyone else in this process that significantly changes those terms, we would bring it back to you at the next meeting. And at the end of this, I'm asking for another Airport Commission meeting in a month. That's one of the reasons. So we think it's a good deal overall for the airport and the city. We have had no issues at all with banks or reversionary clauses or 50-year requirements, which, by the way, we couldn't do anyway. This is an aviation lease. It's really unusual. FAA will not go any longer than a 30-year lease, but at the same time, they don't want to review the lease. If it's an aviation lease, they only want to review non-aviation leases. And that could be because there's just been maybe too many sweetheart deals done over the years, and the FAA likes to kind of have an oversight over, especially if it's going longer than 30 years, because that could tie up airport development in some cases. In this case, it's not going to tie up. Obviously, it's within the master plan requirements. It's on the north ramp. It's designed. It's used for aviation, and it will fit in well with a future taxiway extension that we have in our capital improvement program. So I would like to recommend that the Airport Commission approve in concept both the Davis development lease, the Davis termination of their existing lease, and the Vero Beach Avionics termination lease.
You actually want a motion?
You want one motion on both of those? Is that what you're asking?
Or you just want us to...
How about we do it one by one just to make sure? So the first thing would be the termination of the existing, and this would all happen at the same time. And we'll put it on City Council at the same time. But the first thing would be the termination of the Davis development lease.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
We have any discussion? Do you want a formal vote?
I can.
Okay.
Mr. Vosell?
Aye.
Mr. Hodge?
Aye.
Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Cantner?
Yes.
Mrs. Derndak?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. And then the next would be the new Davis development lease, which would, in essence, I think you would really want to approve this with the Vero Beach Avionics termination, because one can't happen without the other. So I would ask for an approval of the new Davis development lease and the Vero Beach Avionics termination.
So moved.
To be concurrent on the same day.
So moved.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
I just have a question. What is the rents on the property before have a building, and now it's just going to be land? However, they are demolishing. What's the difference in the rents?
I don't know if, Lisa, if you have that number. Ultimately, we think that I think it'll be a small reduction in rental for what we're getting now, because we're getting rent on a building that is significantly, I'd say it's functionally obsolete. It just needs to go.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we agreed to not force the issue with Vero Beach Avionics. We didn't want to try to, in the past when you do a termination, we ask for a rent in advance. We thought that'd be kind of like putting salt in the wound in this case. I mean, they've done a great job of trying to run a business out of a large hangar that was old when they got it. It was in bad shape when they got it. And so we felt like this was probably the best solution for all.
Well, just the fact that they're going to pay to tear it down, I think, is Davis is
Right.
going to tear it down.
Right.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Go ahead, Mary.
The Davis development, is this, did they provide like a site?
Can't hear you, Mary.
Did they develop a site for the new
I
building?
think we have a picture.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. While she's doing two things. See, this is the way it is at the airport, too. She has to be doing two things at once. She's asking for the rent difference. Now she's running over to the... I mean, it's...
That's why she gets the big bucks.
Yeah. I don't think
Sorry,
she'd agree
Lisa.
with that one. There it is, yeah. It's 125 by 125
That's
by
good
30.
sized.
Hydro swing door. It's not going to be inexpensive to build, and they're going to be putting in the nice floors that you'd see in a jet hangar, plus some insulation, and all the requirements that the fire code will require, and that kind of thing. So it's going to be a really nice hangar. It, in essence, starts off the development of the north ramp toward where we would like to see it go, and we've been trying to get in that direction for quite a while.
All right. Can you call the vote?
Mr. Vosell,
Aye.
Mr. Hodge,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Cantner,
Yes.
Mrs. Darndack.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
We just need to teach them how to spell hanger, Lisa, when they get on their next time we get a sketch.
Yes.
It is an aviation company
Hangar.
after all. The next thing is item 4D, and that is the Mado commercial new lease. I have to make you run up there again and show the north.
That's okay.
The north ramp picture that we'd like to show shows what we're going to do with the former operations facility that's now being vacated by Davis. Just so happens that we had, Lisa has talked to several individuals, but this particular company seems to be where we want to go with really what they'd like to do is lease the facility and renovate as necessary. But it's a short-term lease, so we're not asking for a whole lot of renovation. We're just asking for them to keep it up to code and to improve it where possible for storage of commercial aircraft for a 5-year lease. This may turn into a longer term lease over time and may turn into some future development along the north ramp also because they are a development company as well. And we're hoping to see this be parlayed into some development of the north ramp on the east side.
What's Mado's background?
I think they're here. I don't know if the gentleman would like to talk about what you have planned. I know you've been there you probably forgot why you're here at this point. you want to say a couple words or up at the podium? Sorry, got to make you get on the speaker.
And if you'll just give your name, please.
My name's Matt Gilbert. I'm in the grocery store business. I sell supermarket equipment to primarily Publix, but we supply their deli equipment. Some years ago, Todd and I have been
Sure, the
friends.
mic is close to your mic. I'm sorry, to your mouth.
All right, how's that? Can you hear me? So again, I'm in the grocery business. Todd is a local contractor here in town. We own the company together, which is Mato Commercial, which we do commercial, not so much, we do some development work, but a lot of commercial renovation, specialty work all over the country, not just in Florida, but we do a lot of grocery retail renovation work from here to California. Safeway, Albertsons, Publix, Winn-Dixie, a lot of big retail type stuff. And Todd's got a long background here in Vero. I'll let him go. Go ahead.
We have our personal aircraft that we do a lot of site visits to a lot of these out-of-state places where we service. So having the ability to have a hangar, that could venture into more for our business scope. This seemed to fit our needs. I'm a local contractor, been here three generations. We've looked into possibilities of purchasing new hangars and stuff like that and kind of helping with the city's building plan. So it's a little premature to go into any of that right now because right now we're just looking at the option to be able to have personal hangar space with, the opportunity to advance.
You got a 737-800?
I wish. We would be building a new hangar.
Can I get your last name, please?
Todd Thompson.
Eric, are there restrictions like over at the T hangars on what can be stored in any of these hangars?
At the T
No boat trailers.
I know
that.
the T hangars for
You got
sure,
me
but
about that.
in a hangar like this, are there restrictions?
Well, the FAA always likes to see aviation hangars used for aircraft storage. But they normally allow things like temporary storage of other, equipment that might be needed that are ancillary to the business use. And I don't think that there's going to be any issue here. But we do check occasionally. If it turns out to be just a storage facility for RVs or something, we'll tend to,
Yeah,
check
I just
on
want to make sure you guys knew about that
Oh, yeah, we fully
rule.
understand.
Okay.
it.
They are
It's for
actually
an aircraft.
they are actually currently T hangar tenants.
Oh, okay. So you're moving your RV?
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right, we need a motion to send that up to City Council.
So moved.
I think we're good.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All right, do we have a vote?
Mr. Bosell,
Aye.
Mr. Hodge,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Cantner,
Yes.
Mrs. Darndeck.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you all for that, and we will go as quickly
Thank
as possible
you.
to City Council. Item E is not an action item. It's just to let you know, really, we had planned originally to bring a lease forward, but we're still working out some things with the tenant here. I guess Lisa's going to show you another picture. There's actually 2 potential locations. Oh, it's already up there. Okay. You can see where the little hand is. Looking at either one of those 2 locations, the one on the south side is Hangar 9, has always been used and called Hangar 9, where there's really just the concrete block walls and no doors right now, which would require demolition cost, which the tenant has agreed to handle at their cost. And then the other one would be the one in the northeast corner there, which we think might be a better location to start because it wouldn't tie up any of the development of the rest of the north ramp. It'd be at one end, which would allow a full development all the way down through the sheriff's hangar. And the sheriff's hangar, the white one on the south there, is going to be vacated probably by January, February timeframe. As you know, they're working on a new facility over on their own property for helicopter operations. That'll free up that hangar and Hangar 9 to be possibly included as part of an overall development for that area. Hangar, storage. The north ramp, the airport master plan is looking at the north ramp in that area for corporate hangar development, and that's why we don't really want to put one small personal hangar right there where Hangar 9 is. Lisa considered this would probably be better to use the north corner, and so that's why we're talking to the tenant. I believe he's pretty amenable to that so far.
Yes, when I spoke with him the other day, he thought it would be a better idea and I agreed because of the size of the hangar he's building. The property, which is called Parcel 6, where the smaller one up on the northeast corner, there are a lot of restrictions on the land. There's building restriction line, there's the BRL, there's also utility easements and drainage easements and such like that. So basically where that hangar is the only place you can actually build a structure on that piece of property. The remainder of the north ramp, there aren't as many restrictions.
Are we going to have to move that road to get it out of the RPZ?
We took that out of the master plan to leave the road where it is. Should the FAA pick up on that and decide that we do have to move the road, then we'll have to probably comply.
That hangar wouldn't be in jeopardy then of being in the roadway?
The road, I think, would be, if the FAA requires it, would be moved to right about where the black asphalt ends there, wouldn't it? I mean, it wouldn't move too far south. And so, yeah, it might take up some of the leased land, but it should still allow for the building.
Okay.
I tried to, it's not to scale, of course. I was doing this with the PDF and so on and so forth. But I tried to put it to where if we did have to extend the taxiway, it wouldn't affect the building itself. Now, that may need to be looked at a little bit closer later on, but this was just something I threw down just for a conceptual plan.
So you'll be coming back to us with a lease?
Absolutely.
For that? Okay,
yes.
Great. All right, any other comments about the leases or anything? All right. We've got we've done F. G, discuss Airport Commission annual report. If you guys would like, I would be happy to write a general synopsis again, like I have for the past couple of years, and then have Eric and his staff do the details of what all the things that the airport did in terms of grants and everything else. I think because we don't really deal with a lot of that information, but I want the city council to have a good synopsis of it. Does unless somebody else wants to write it?
I think that's a grand idea.
If you're willing to do it.
You're hired.
Amen.
All right, I'll plagiarize last year's report.
Yeah. Update the numbers and. Or we can talk about an airline, which is in the report.
Yes, we'll have.
If you can have it done before your next airport commission meeting.
By October 29th?
Yes, and then they can approve.
I may not be able to do that.
I'll work
But I'll
on
try.
my end.
The only thing is I usually wait for the latest numbers from the finance department when they do their closeout for their fiscal year. And if I don't have those numbers, I'm guessing. So I don't know.
I'm only saying that because they like to have the commission approval before it gets put into the annual report.
Yeah, and we might want to do another airport commission meeting in November too. I think by then I'd certainly have the finance directors, close out for the fiscal year because it ends September 30th, of course, next week, and then it takes a while for them to go through all the different departments and get all the data, and I usually won't have it by the next meeting. So, but when we get to the meeting dates. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. Try to think about 2 meetings, October and November. And if we can do you have your calendar? Because I know we have to find out if this room is available too.
Always move over to county commission.
Yeah.
They charge too
A lot
much.
nicer.
All right, so I guess airline update.
Yes, I've got the jet we're talking about there. Thank you, Lisa, for putting that back up.
How long is that going to take, Eric? I have to head out at 3:00.
Yikes. Well, mine's not going to take too long, but we have an airport master plan item on the agenda also.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's anything more that we need to vote on regarding any of this.
True. Neither. These are updates.
But I'll just hang in there then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the airline update, I'll go through it briefly, but we did, the data from the master plan is what kicked this all off, as you all recall, going through the master plan study. And the true market study that was done by Sixel Consulting, which is a sub-consultant, came out in November of 2014, almost a year ago now, about 10 months ago. And then we reviewed that, and we brought that to your attention on February 26th of 2015. At the regular airport commission meeting. And at that point, we discussed airline service, and you all gave a unanimous approval for staff to pursue airline service. And city manager also approved budget changes as necessary to about $25,000 at the time to pursue airline service through discussions with the airlines, visits with the airlines, and whatever was needed. Haven't really had to use much of that money actually to date because there's only one thing we did, and that's go to one conference and then a couple of trips to airports, and none of those really cost a lot of money. I think maybe out of the $25,000 we might have spent $4,000 so far. But the good news is, as we were talking, the CEO of Elite Airways, which owns the jets like the one you see there on the picture, visited in March. Not long after the airport commission said go for it, Elite brought a couple jets down just to store them at the airport at Vero while the Melbourne Air Show was going on, and they needed a space to put 2 jets, and they came up to talk, and we showed them. Just so happens we had that true market study ready to go, and we showed them the data. They said, well, that's pretty much what we've been seeing too, which was nice to know because that confirmed the study data. And they also indicated that a lot of the traffic they were seeing in Melbourne was from this area. So we then went to the conference in April, as I mentioned, and talked to airlines, came back, and we voted in May, as you recall, to change the airport name to Vero Beach Regional, and made that change official through City Council right after that in July. And we also submitted a grant application for $200,000 to the Small Community Air Service Development Grant Program on July 22nd. And we have since received word that that was a thumbs down, unfortunately. We did not get the grant money, which has also kind of changed where we were going to go, because if we're not going to have that additional money, that also constrains some of what we can do. Elite Airways announced proposed service to Vero Beach for the fall of 2015. And August 17th of this year, they gave us a letter of intent to put that in writing. And we passed it over to the TSA. We started the TSA process at that point because they needed an LOI from the airline to do so. And we've since been working with the TSA, I'd say almost daily, trying to get the terminal ready for the equipment that TSA needs to bring in order to meet the requirements, the security requirements, to operate a 50-seat jet. So we've done all that. We've completed a second visit with the CEO and the vice president from Elite Airways on September 9th. We then set the date for November 2nd as a start date, and that now has changed to December 10th after further discussions with Elite Airways, just because the time frame in order to get this is taking a little bit longer than we thought, and even December 10th is going to be an aggressive start date. But we now have... On September 22nd, we met with our architect of record, Tony Donadio, on the terminal building to propose a terminal building modification that would meet TSA's requirements and impact our tenants and the businesses that are already operating there the least and cost us the least amount of money. And we think we have a plan. We're going to move forward with that and bring that to council probably on the first meeting of October, which would be a work order with the engineer to redesign the terminal building lobby that you now see Avis in and Legacy Flight Training to meet the requirements of the airline. The catch is we will now be talking to our tenants to see how it's going to impact them. That's going to be the only real hardship in this, I think, other than money. As we all know, there's always the possibility that the elite may decide down the road that it may not want to move forward, depending on the service, the market response they get from the people here in the community. But I have to say, just about every day, we get an email or a phone call or two or three. Either we get it, or the elite gets it, or Todd will get one, that is just supportive of this going to Newark, direct, nonstop. And a lot of people really love the fact that it's nonstop, that it's a jet, that it's business class type service, free parking, all the things that Vero Beach can provide. And with the terminal layout that we're looking at, it should be fairly comfortable for 50 people to pass through and go through security and put their luggage on carts and have it moved to the airport in a secure fashion without any problems from staff's perspective. Now we've got to go through the engineers, the architect, the TSA. FAA's got to do another inspection also of all this to meet our Class 1, Part 139 requirements. And lots to go moving forward, but that's where we are to date. And I just wanted to let you know it's looking very good. But again, we do have a lot of things still to handle. And we are trying to spend as little money as possible. We will probably be coming forward, if this all goes well, say March, April next year, we may be coming forward with a budget amendment and possibly a capital improvement program amendment to do further terminal renovations that will cost lots of money and will require grant funds to do, or a large chunk of our airport reserves, which I'm not comfortable in spending. And I'd like to use grant funds, if at all possible, to move forward. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I missed that launch date. Was that November 10th or?
December 10th.
December 10th. Thank you.
So now the TSA is going to move to the inside of the terminal? We're not, because we didn't get that grant, we couldn't
that was part of it, and when we saw some of the cost that it would entail, I mean, in order to build a new facility, you know, we were going back and forth between modular buildings and a real building. If you brought in a modular building, the cost was going to be in the neighborhood of $550,000, $590,000, and that would only get us, 1 year's worth of rent plus the construction impact. They would have to pour concrete and everything to bring that in, and then you just have a temporary building. So we're thinking, well, if we're going to spend that much money, and we had no grant, mind you, to do this, maybe we'll talk about just building a full facility and just keep it as a terminal renovation forever. Well, that was going to cost $2.5 million. So because then if you're building a permanent building, you want to build something for future expansion too. You don't just want to build for one airline, because now you're going to have to expand in a year or two, possibly. So now we're talking about 9,000 to 12,000 square feet. And with the money being spent, we said, well, we just can't. We don't have a grant. We can't use that much airport reserve money to do this. Totally 100% airport dollars. I didn't think you all would go for it because I didn't even want to do it. So we went back to what can we do and put our heads together and determined that we could fit everything in the terminal lobby only for what we would fit right now, which is a 50 to 70 seat aircraft, and meet the TSA requirements and everything. The only thing is we will have to talk to Legacy because their spaces are going to have to be used for this. The thing about that is, and I guess I'm talking to them right now, but they already knew anyway because we have been talking to them all along. They are on a month-to-month lease as it is. They're on 30-day written notice agreement, and they have been in need of expansion as well. They're growing as well, and they can't fit where they are. So we're going to try to help them any way we can at the same time. Try to make space for the airline.
So how's that going to be configured in terms of waiting rooms and security? And
To be determined.
I think I can show you that, but I have to say it's a draft.
And
But Lisa, could you put
what's
this
going to
on the
happen with
board? I don't know if you
Avis?
can- This is only a draft.
And has anybody determined the potential economic impact?
Yes, but it's not accurate, but it's about $1.8 million just for the one airline in the first year.
Negative or positive?
Positive to the community. The airport's it's going to cost us. The cost to the airport is going to be in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $250,000 to get this going.
What happens on April 30th?
On April 30th?
Yeah, in other words, that's pretty much our end of the season, and I just have concerns about them saying, okay, we've cherry-picked your people down here now, nobody's going to go up to Newark after April 30, so we're pulling
Right
out.
now, they serve Melbourne
Other way.
on a seasonal basis.
Seasonal only. That's what I'm concerned about here.
Yeah, I think there's a concern with us too.
So where's the...
But I have to tell you, I'm not just stopping at Elite and not
Yeah,
talking to
you've got
anybody
another
else.
conference.
Going to a conference
October?
third week in October, and I will be talking to several of the legacy carriers as well as some smaller carriers to try to let them know where we're going and what we can do. And I already have several Part 135 operators that want to. Now that they heard that we're a regional airport and we have an airline coming in, I've got some calls from that. And I've already talked to some of our existing charter people as well to see how we can maybe use this for some of that operation, which would just be scheduled charter or possibly just even non-scheduled charter, just going to wherever people want to go, but always working toward. Using this facility for what now we're going to design it for. Now, that piece of equipment you see there that says X-ray on it, that long piece of equipment on the left side of the diagram there, that comes at a cost to the taxpayer of a certain amount of money. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but TSA actually covers the cost of bringing that piece of equipment in. It may be a used piece of equipment. It's not brand new. It may be from another airport that has reduced airline service, for example. They'll move it here, though, by truck, and they'll install it, and we'll do all the wiring to help them get it in there. And they have, I think it's 90 days, and I have to double-check that. But if we have no service for a certain amount of time, then we got to move that out again, and they'll use it somewhere else. So there's some risk, which I've always said there will be. There's going to be cost involved, and we're sticking our neck out a little bit. I'm hoping that the community, and we'll be doing some marketing, but we hope that the community will support this service and use it, because we'll need to have full aircraft pretty much all the time in order to make this profitable for the airline and a long-term endeavor.
I know this is only conceptual. This may sound like a stupid question, but is the restroom only accessible from the secure side?
It'll only have to be secure during the time, about an hour prior and sometime afterwards. Remember, we're talking about 2 flights a week right now.
Oh, that's okay.
So, but yes, it will be on the secure side during the time that it's secure, and we're also talking to TSA about that to see what requirements we'll have to do there. See that line there that's right there, right to the south side of all the terminal, the restrooms?
Yeah.
That will be a door that will be accessible to go out, but you won't necessarily be able to go in without an electric, badge. So it'll have security requirements to get in there so that it'll be used primarily for a secure area. because you will have to have people that once they're through there are going to want, and we're probably going to put some vending machines in what's now the Tenvis room, and some water and things that so people once they get through can get bottled water and like we always do. But it'll be a very small operation. You can see the square footage is not very much. But the good thing is we don't have to build anything new, and we can also reconfigure it back later without huge costs should this not work out.
You mentioned Legacy Flight Training is looking for additional space. What about the north ramp where we're dealing with the other tenants? That might be a good spot for them.
We've been talking with them about other properties on the airport that they might possibly go to, but they have a couple other options also.
Hate to lose them.
We do too, especially when they're growing, and we want to help them grow. Right. Now it's the kind of thing now I wish we had built 36,000 square foot terminal instead of 24 when we built it. But, those things we were building in a recession, as you recall, at the time. And for me to come back with, hey, we think we're going to have lots of new tenants in about 2 years, that never would have flown. And the money to build what we have was pretty high. So we'll have to try to work with them as best we can. These are good problems to have, I might add. I mean, it's the other option is we have lots of space and nobody wanting to lease it. We don't have that problem. Except land area. We have lots of that, and that's where our business owners are bringing that up. We need to try to get some of that land leased, if possible, in the future.
Looks good.
Chair, in reference to this, not only this, but I think 2 meetings ago we approved a budget for you, Eric, to use in securing a scheduled airline or some manner of transportation, commercial aviation. I'd like to revisit that for a minute to see how we're doing with that and if we need to secure additional funds in lieu of this being the basis for a aircraft service into Vero Beach, if it would be necessary and should be, I would think, following the lines of what you said, that you're still talking or we are still talking to other entities.
We have $25,000 in the budget that's about to run out next week, and we won't spend it all. And then next year we have $50,000 in that particular budget that we're using to track airline expenses, and that would include marketing, and maybe more of it will be marketing now that we did not get that grant that we were hoping to receive. But the city manager has been very supportive of this from the beginning, and I think would entertain budget amendments through the year if needed, at my request, not just because I want it, but if I have backup and I can show what we're trying to do, I think he'd be very supportive. So we'll go forward at that point when we need it. Right now, I think we're fine, though, and we don't want to spend any more than we have to.
Thank you.
Looks good. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. Old business, update the airport master plan.
I'd like to bring up Remy Lucette, who is with Ricondo and Associates. And I'm sorry, I forgot your partner's name. What?
Craig.
Oh, all right. Craig. How could I forget? Craig Fisher is here from Con Edison also, I guess, to fill us in a little bit on the solar side.
Are you bringing snacks, Remy? That's what's in the box.
Those are additional copies of what you should have received by email. So there's one for the city clerk and a few additional in case they were needed. It's almost lunchtime. I'll be quick. Sherry, I was told the presentation was emailed to the computer.
It's there. Go into the folder.
Which folder? Oh, no, there's no folder.
I don't. Do you know which folder it's in, Eric? Or? He didn't tell me, so I don't know.
Tammy told me she emailed it to the computer.
What is it?
October 29th.
Yeah, she just told me she signed
You can't live in it.
I don't know what that means.
Do you want me to TSMC share what it is?
Destin?
It's on the airport. Go to airport and airport commission and our meeting. I put it on there.
Oh,
just in
okay.
case this happens.
Oh, okay.
I physically put that there this morning. Airport commission down below. There you go. Click on that, and then the meeting date 9/24, and then airport. There he goes, right there. Airport master plan update.
Okay.
But it's a PDF. If that's
okay. I think for what we want to do. I did have a shorter version of that. What I sent you because what you received was. Sorry. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So what you received was fairly substantial in size, so I had a condensed version of that presentation to talk mostly about those key points that we wanted to discuss. Eric told me we only had about 30 minutes today. So I'm going to use the same presentation you received. We'll just skip slides, where we can. Let's see if that works. Yes, that works. All right, so we wanted to give you an update on the master plan, show you where we stand, what's been done, what's left to be done before the full plan is complete. It's been a long journey since we started. Vero was a general aviation airport when we started, and now we're looking at plenty of opportunities, so I guess that's a very good thing. What I'll do, there are 4 elements that we wanted to talk about with you today. One, the sustainable actions. I think it's the first time you see the full list of actions with all the enabling steps under those actions. Those are essentially what makes that master plan unique from what DFA has been doing in the past. In the past, DFA would only look at support facilities needed to support the aviation activity at the airport. How much hangar do you need? How much terminal space do you need? How much runway and taxiways do you need? This master plan was also looking at what can the airport do to be more of a model, if I can say, in terms of, in its world, to be more financially self-sustainable, to be better integrated in the community, and to work with the natural resources that exist on the airport. So we have about 14 focused actions. Those actions were developed, I'll go through with some stakeholders. I'd like to go over that and maybe focus on some of the specific actions on which you may have questions or suggestions. So please, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. We also wanted to go over 2 of the sustainable development near-term opportunities, and those are commercial service. I won't spend any time on that since it's been discussed. And the second one was a potential development of a solar farm at the airport. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And Craig Fisher here in the room is with Con Edison, and they're one of the firms that has shown some interest to develop a solar farm at Vero. And finally, the last 2 points that we wanted to talk about were, one, the ALP drawing set, the airport layout plan drawing set. This is something that needs to go out to the Federal Aviation Administration. They will review the ALP, and they will approve specifically 2 of the sheets in that set, which are the existing airport layout plan and the future airport layout plan. But they will accept the entire set. So they will review all of the drawings. They will approve 2 of them, accept the others. For the FAA to have the ability to review the drawings, we produce what's called an airport layout plan narrative report. This is a technical document, and it goes hand in hand with the drawing set. So that's the 2 documents you should have received by hard copies, actually, I think. So I'll start, we don't have much time, with the sustainable focused actions. There were 14 actions. First, you've seen this. We are pretty much at a point where all the steps have been completed. The last few steps that were recently completed included the financial implementation. There were some capital investment that were going to be shown, and we had to work around on how can we make this plan feasible. From a financial standpoint, DFA will not want to approve a plan, or accept a plan, should I say, that shows a negative cash flow for the airport. So that means we have to spread the projects over the next 10, 15 years to make sure that everything fits with the revenue model of the airport. And most recently, we also completed the airport layout plan. That was prepared both with airport staff to incorporate some of the recommendations from this commission, from the advisory panel, who Jay Berklew was part of, and Barbara Darndyke too. So pretty much we're at a point where we're getting ready to submit the airport layout plan and the narrative report to the FAA for approval, while we're finishing the master plan report, which is at that point about 90% complete. Everything's been written. We're assembling the document. We're checking that everything lines up. But essentially, it's very near completion. So that, as soon as it's ready, will be submitted to airport staff for their review, and most likely to you concurrently, so that you can start reviewing the document. Sustainable actions. I talked about it briefly. But essentially, the airport had some goals that were set at the beginning of that study. Those goals were developed based on priorities that were reviewed by the Airport Commission, by airport staff, but also the public had some input. They said, at the visioning meeting, at the open house, what is important for our airport? What do we want to see at this airport? So all of that was rolled into a set of goals, and the top 8 goals that you see on the screens are those goals that came out top on that list. From those goals, which are very broad, I'll give you an example. Develop strategies to strengthen existing airport businesses and attract new businesses to the airport. This is a goal. This is not really a step. So from those goals, we built enabling steps that will allow the airport to make progress toward achieving that goal. And those are the 14 actions that you have received in your package, with some of those under steps. I hope that makes sense. So that's where we are. There are 14 actions, and on my other presentation I had the full list, but here it's one by one. However, if you have some input that you would like to provide on those actions, we can talk about it. I'll give you an example. Some of the discussion that took place earlier about changing the leasing policy, there's an action that's exactly geared toward this, which is promote the airport as a business-friendly place, I think, to attract more tenants and to make sure that the existing tenants, stay at the airport when their lease expires. So maybe that a specific action towards what was discussed this morning could be added in these steps or could be merged with some of the steps, but that's just one of the ideas. So I'll open it up to you. If you have questions about those actions, we'd like to talk about the steps. Again, we are preparing a sustaining Vero Beach Airport booklet that's going to be about 30 pages that lists all those steps, that has a tracking tool at the end, which is essentially tracking where the airport stands in terms of progress toward achieving and completing those actions. So it's a concrete plan, and we believe the FAA will be very happy to see that. The airport has a plan that's been put together with all the stakeholders that matter at the airport, and that gives the FAA something concrete to see that the airport is working towards achieving that self-sustainability goal and keeping it.
Any questions?
On those 14 actions or on the process, did you all get a chance to review the steps? Do they make sense?
Yep.
Is there one there on leasing policy strategy or improving the business market at the airport? That goes along with promote.
Here,
where is it? Promote the airport as a business-friendly place. I mean, this kind of ties in with what we had discussion this morning on, and might be something that we just want. I don't know if we want to tweak that or any verbiage in there, or we can just talk about specific as we move forward. I guess these are more generic. We've got to find some ways to make everybody happy, to try to improve our leasing, such that we can get some long-term development on our land leases. Because anybody's willing to lease building when it's there, and it just happens to be the right size that they want. Mm-hmm. But we haven't typically done speculative building, so we need something to encourage people to lease the land and develop. That's what we want to get to.
Well, I just want to be careful, too, that the people that already have the 30-year leases all of a sudden aren't going, whoa, wait a minute, and all of a sudden everybody runs in and renegotiates everything because we've
zero money. Yeah,
because we've done one thing for one person, and I mean, now it's...
Right.
I I think we just have to be really careful about.
I thought of one
doing
idea that just real quickly, just to run by you, that we may want to consider, and Lisa and I will talk it out too. But if we and just use the Charlie Sullivan example, there's a dollar amount that a professional appraisal has given us that says that the city's value in that, if we want to do this extension out to whatever date he wanted, is $980,000. All right, so he can either pay us that up front, and therefore he can continue for that with no change to the land rent, or we could add it to the rent. That's what so far, those are only two options we had. What if a third option would be to take some of that money, and every month that goes by, we take a part of that rent and put it to an escrow account. And that escrow account would be used only to improve the value of that building. It could be used for painting or roof work or whatever. So in essence, because the biggest problem we always seem to have is that toward the end of the lease, nobody wants to do any improvements to it's running out. They don't want it, they just let it go. But if we had an escrow amount that could only be used for that, and we collect that period, over time, and the finance director and the city and the GASB rules and the GAP rules and everything else would allow us to do this, we would have money that we could transfer only to that tenant as an incentive for doing that lease extension. But they still have to come up with the money, but it goes back to them. Some of it goes back to them. Right now, it all goes to whatever we want.
And then they benefit.
And then they benefit from it. So that might be something to consider. And I was thinking about that as we were talking, and that may be other ideas that I hope Watson and Berkeley come to us with. But what they want is something back. If they're going to put the investment in, they want something back for that. And right now we say, your contract says you got to give us the money and we can do whatever we want with it, and airports are expensive, and that's all true. But if we give some of it back, and of course we got to run this all by probably FAA and everybody, maybe there's a benefit to them also to do that. I mean, we're far apart on the Sullivan proposal, but if we can come to a little bit closer, maybe we'll.
Now that 900,000 is just the actual value today. If somebody came in and bought it, let's say, and that's just on the building.
The 980,000.
Yeah,
that is.
Or is that extended over?
Yeah,
that's the value.
The value was like $4.5 million, I think, wasn't it? It was. The value of the building is millions of dollars. We're saying it's 980,000. Rather than wait to the end of the lease where we do an appraisal and it's $4.5 million, and then if it was in today's dollars, that would be a rent of $450,000 a year based on our current policy, 10%. Okay. All right. Well, we're saying give us $980,000 now, and we won't do that at the end of your reversion period. We'll just continue the extension. You just pay land rent, but we got to get that $980,000 now, which is today's value of the $4.5 million down the road.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's already done. We did that through the appraisal, and I know we're talking without the benefit of them here now, and we'll get to that. But, I mean, they're saying, well, we don't think there should be any value because of various reasons they have. So somewhere in the middle is where you get the number, and then maybe if we give them some incentive to do it, because some of that money will go back to you. That's just a thought, we'll consider. We'll talk about it.
Unfortunately, Arthur and I need to leave for another meeting, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This is the only chance I get to talk to you guys.
Call me anytime.
Well, look at that date. We're looking at October 29th. So kind of look at that, and if we come up with another one, we'll make sure that.
Any time other than October the 29th.
Okay.
A regional meeting in Destin, actually. So.
And we have to look at the one in November, too, and we're going to be picking
Just have Sherry send out some proposed dates.
Yeah, we'll get that to you.
See what we got.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for coming.
See you, gentlemen.
Just real quick in regards to the reversions and such, we actually have Treasure Coast Storage. His building is reverting in 2019, and part of his addendum is arranging to start paying for that now and reducing his monthly payments.
Right.
And actually corporate, which he just left as of October 1, his building reverted. So,
well, that's what it just, corporate did too?
Mm-hmm.
Because it just kind of seems that if they wanted to do it in today's value, they could just amortize it over the remaining 18 years plus the 10 and 10 extension to lower the cost. But that's interesting that they consider that when you build it, the city owns it already anyway. How does that work out?
That's something that the tax attorney that we were working on for the Department of Revenue. That's what he said, but in his terms, it was that we just need to educate the banks. But that's something we just need to look at because we need to make it a win-win.
So is he looking for sales tax then on that immediate value rather than the land rent?
No, we wouldn't. That's what I think what our attachment B adjustment says, that we wouldn't be looking for sales tax on the value of the improvements.
Of the improvement.
Correct.
Because it's owned by a municipality, so it's tax exempt.
Correct.
Okay.
So, by the tax laws. And that could be something that will pop up too, is that when we start sending these leases through, the tax collector may be actually collecting less tax because they've been appraising these things. It's supposed to be appraised as a leasehold value, but I think they appraise it as if it was fee simple owned property because that's what they're used to. And it's not. It's a leasehold value. You have a value there. And I don't know that their staff at the property appraiser's office is fully knowledgeable on the difference between a leasehold value and fee simple property ownership.
So since the improvements are already owned by the city and were tax exempt, their property appraisal should really only be on the leasehold.
On the leasehold value.
Which
Now,
is the land.
Well, it may include, there's a value to that building also. They're using it. They built it. There's a value. There's construction costs, all that. How they put that into the appraisal, though, is outside of my purview. But there should be a way to appraise that leasehold value that may end up being the same as what they're doing now. And that's probably the case. In other words, they appraise it now as a fee simple, as if the tenant owns everything and they're paying taxes. Maybe as a leasehold value, it would be close, if not the same dollar amount. That's where an appraiser's skill comes in. And as you know, appraisers are art and science. There's a little bit of both in there.
Right.
And those folks know by experience and by the market value that they're working in what those values should reasonably bring with a willing buyer and a willing seller. That's up to them to figure out.
But the property appraiser appraises the land and the improvements.
Yes.
But for sales tax purposes on the rents,
right,
we only collect on the property rent basically
rent.
until it
Just the
reverts.
rent.
Yes.
Ooh, that could get interesting because those are two different approaches to the value of the property.
And that's
and
where
who owns what.
Yeah, and what Lisa's saying is right. We got to educate banks and property appraisers' office on how airports work, because I don't think anybody really in most communities understands how this really works.
So if we have a vacant property and a vacant building, we're not paying anything for it. We're not paying property taxes or anything. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. More for, that's good food for thought. We've got to come back.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a conflict between two different entities, a property appraiser, tax collector of county, and the tax collector at the state for sales tax.
I might even suggest a hiring a real estate firm, not even local, just a firm that is familiar with this kind of approach to actually help us with our leasing policy and put some words in there that would match. I mean, or we can, we'll keep working on our own. But
I think a very reasonable way to do it would be contacting Naples and say, can you show us what 4 of your properties, 2 aviation, 2 non-aviation leases, show us their leases, show us their tax rate, show us what you pay, see what's amortized, and this way we kill 2 birds with one stone. We learn about their taxes and we learn about their leases.
Yeah,
I think Naples would be a good example because none of us ever think of Naples, but we are a community that's rather
pretty similar. Although their millage rate is a lot higher than ours.
Okay, well, we'll divide it down.
Yeah.
But
that's a good idea.
I think it would be a good way to.
Yeah, and who knows who's got the approach. Like I said, the tax collector here through the property appraiser and the Department of Revenue through the sales tax, valuing the properties completely different ways, which is interesting. Because if we're tax exempt, then probably there shouldn't be property tax on the building because the tenant doesn't own it. But you're saying they get a value from it. Yeah, see, that's an interesting issue. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Remy.
I know. It's a very important point. And actually, what I was going to add is this could also roll back into the develop the airport commercial village action. Right. Could have a lot of implications in terms of who shows interest to moving into the airport commercial village. So that I think that's a very important point. So just so you know, along with all those steps, we also, for each step, we try to put a cost estimate in terms of dollar expense that the airport would have. Granted, it's an estimate, and some of those are, could go different ways. We put a dollar amount and we put an hourly, a number of labor resources needed to do it, just to say that those come on top of what the airport is already doing for a lot of them. And we currently spread them over 5 years. That might even be aggressive to complete such a dense set of actions in 5 years. So even though the initial plan showed that over 5 years, it might be 10 years until some of those actions get completed. Good news that the airport already started on some of them, such as restoring air service. So any other action that might be of interest to any of you to discuss? Are you on board with those actions? Those are essentially what's coming as recommended from the study to airport staff as some specific action that could benefit the airport over time. So in that case, you'll see with the master plan technical report, there will be a sustainability booklet that will include some background, some of the research that was done on some of those actions, and essentially all the actions in one book that the airport can use as their. It's almost like it's not a day-to-day action playbook, but it's maybe a monthly action playbook where you can refer.
And this is the sustainability that we're talking about is what we defined early as a community as economic self-sustainability primarily.
Absolutely.
Tied in also with being in tune with our environment and trying to do what we can to reduce energy costs. But I mean, the whole goal of this is to try to maintain self-sufficiency, and that's how we've been looking at sustainability. The FAA is more of a macro approach, but we're trying to meet their requirements at the same time meet what our community is looking for.
So we are trying to meet all the FAA requirements. The FAA is funding this project. We have to follow their guidelines, but this is heavily geared and emphasized on, keeping the airport financially self-sustainable, which we believe the FAA could be very interested in the results. We talked about it, some simple things such as, FAA funding. What happens if one day the FAA says, Vero ATC, we can't fund that tower anymore? Has the airport, the reserves in place to take over some of that? Or do they lose a tower? We have along the flight training. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years for general aviation airports, which Vero Beach might not be a general aviation airports in 10 years.
So in about 2 months.
So that's a good news. All right. So I'll talk quickly about the solar. I mean, you saw the slides. I wanted to see if you had any questions, I guess. Craig Fisher with Con Edison is here. If you have technical questions, that might be the time. There's going to be more analysis done. I think the goal is to, probably by the next meeting, to have something more concrete to show you. But right now, there's been some analysis done on the site that's between the two runways. There is some glare, which was expected because it's aligned with the runways, and the tower obviously will need to look at the north runway, and there will be some glare. But this can be addressed by looking at things, tilting the panels differently, putting a coating on the panels. So this is the next step. So nothing says it can be done at that point. But if you had any questions in terms of what solar could, how it could benefit the airport, Craig is here, and
And obviously you have to work with the city because you'd be tying into their system. So, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
We did meet with two people. We met with city utilities, electrical, and we also met with Public Works. That was through one of our sub. And then we presented this to, recently we had a meeting where we met with some city planning and Public Works staff. And generally everything's, everybody's on board. I think the mechanisms in place with the city would allow that. It could actually help the city to reach some of its goals, to diversify the production of energy. So far, we haven't seen many hurdles other than making sure that it can be built in the middle of that airfield without being a problem for air navigation. That's the last thing we want, obviously.
I apologize. I have 3 other commitments that I must attend to.
Wow, we're
and
running out of people.
that's my day off.
No,
you know?
now you don't have
Now-
enough.
Gotta go.
And on the
You don't have enough to
29th,
continue.
I will be the whole day in Stewart at a college function I must attend.
Can we
So-
just set the next meetings? And how about, Barb, if we bring this back, because we may have to come back one more time, Remy, I think.
Correct.
just
No,
and to have the whole meeting on just the airport commission.
Right.
I mean, the
Right.
airport, the master plan.
Right.
We'll give them. They'll have the technical report at that point. in
Okay.
hand.
So I apologize you had to come up here and make the trip, but at least the presentation is pretty much ready to roll. If that's okay, Barb, we'll just have to let's get the
it
dates.
sounds like at least 2 members are not available October 29th. Are there other dates available?
You are available.
Did we hear from Carol Jean? Because that's 2 meetings now.
Yeah, I didn't hear from her, but we'll check on
Okay.
on that because if
we're
we have
short
2
too, we
consecutive,
need,
yeah.
Well, we need people for the meetings too.
Right, but if a member misses 2
Unexcused.
meetings, then
Okay.
we check and find out.
Okay.
She was at the advisory panel, the last advisory panel meeting.
Oh,
she
she was.
attended to
Okay.
be aware of what was going on.
Okay.
And she did let us know she would not be able to attend this meeting.
Okay.
But she would keep an eye on the document coming in.
So should we figure on the 29th then, even though we have 2? Arthur, I don't know. Did he say the 30th was okay? It's hard to set a meeting when they're not here now to
Right.
talk
Why
about
don't I just work with Eric and then I'll try
Okay,
to
and try and-
coordinate with everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, Con Edison, can we change that to Pro? I know it is. I know it is. My dad was in the electrical utility business for years, but he worked with Detroit Edison.
There's quite a few Edisons. We're glad to be the original, but I think there's too many now.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Should we just then hold
we
off
better
on this?
Well,
Yeah, well, you'll need to because you don't have a quorum anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think we're voting on anything, but we might as well wait. Okay. Interesting. All right. So, Remy, sorry about that. We knew this was going to be long.
No, if you have comments, rather than waiting until the next meeting, if you want to, give Eric comments that Eric can pass on to us.
Yeah, because everybody got the handouts that hopefully they'll review.
Right.
And be happy to, listen to them.
That would be great.
Okay, wonderful.
All very good, though. I will say he's done a very nice job.
Yeah, this has
I
been
like
very
the layout.
comprehensive. And we appreciate you guys going a little off script with the business plan idea.
It's very interesting. I got to tell you that to me, that makes this master plan one of the richest master plan. I think we got to make sure we stay within the FA's guidelines. That's the biggest challenge.
That's the first, yeah.
But I think the FA will be on board to see that this airport is trying to get a plan that works with facilities on the airside part of the airport and on the land side so that they can continue to operate. I think that's what every airport should be doing.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense. They're worried about all kinds of sustainability, and they never ask about the economic sustainability of the airport. So I'm really pleased that this went this direction. And
they are very curious. I think as soon as we submit the plan to you and you bless it, they'll be waiting for it to see what's in there.
good. We hope we'll get some feedback from them too. I'll be curious to hear.
I'm sure we will.
What they have to say. So
I'm sure we will.
maybe. All right. Anything else? Nope. I guess we're out of whack here anyway. So we better have an adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh no, that's all right. I didn't know
follow
that you
policy.
couldn't even have the meeting continue.